Thank you for coming out to CEBLOOMS, checking out my channel, seeing what I'm up to. I'm here and I just want to sit down and talk a little bit, sit down comfortably and talk to you just a little bit what's going on in my mind. And I want you guys to really adhere to what I'm saying. And when I keep saying it over and over again, that the world is controlled by falsification of history, and that the various sects, nationalities, cults, religions, dogmas are there to control you. And a lot of them are there basically also to steal land from you, and assets, and businesses, and fortunes. It's also there to steal your identities. Now, the games people play is beyond anything that you could ever imagine. And the people who are in place to do these games, in their psychotic minds, they somehow think they're doing right, which I couldn't perceive or conceive that it be the case in any event. Now, because we lack the understanding of history, with this lack of understanding, we don't realize the games that are played over and over again on us. Because if we actually looked at any of the stories that they've been selling, and they've been selling a lot of stories over the years, if we ever looked at them and looked back through history, we can find those stories. We can find the same stuff that's going on all through history. We can see the rise and fall of civilizations coordinated the same way as we can see organizations and corporations rise up. Now, most people don't realize that the United States is the same government that my grandfathers gave to this country. And that you said, that look like a black guy on YouTube. You call me black, call me whatever you want to call me. But the Blackfoot, Saponi, Okanichi, Tulu, Mo, in which Okanichi is Japanese, Chinese, and Nubian, and it means Nubian King of Light. And I'm here to bring the light. That's my name, being a person. Robert Mormon, pierced the valley with bright fame or light, beloved man. And my name doesn't derive from a man on a moor, or none of those fraudulent stories that Tash Russell and the rest of the criminal gangs concocted, coming from Germany inferior into Scotland and making up the Mormon faith, which then they passed off to Joseph Smith, and he's supposed to find some scrolls in Ithaca, New York. Or they started the Jehovah's Witnesses and Skull and Bone. So that's what you're dealing with. Same people also started B'nai B'rith. A lot of these other organizations, I'm telling you, they all together. They play games with each other, but a lot of the members don't even know it. But the higher echelons of the organizations, they're in the same meeting rooms. As you also notice that there's no wax pill Ethiopian queen of the Jews running around. I mean, what's that? Come on, it's continuous bloodlines, not business ties. Moses' name is Amenhotep IV. His mother's beloved Queen T. That's where the Mormon name derives from. So all of this nonsense, all these lies about he was a Hyksos shepherd king and all that old crap. Hyksos didn't even come into that area, and they doesn't come in as conquerors at that point. They came as grazers and raising sheep and what have you. That's why they call this Hyksos shepherd kings. That's why you see sheep in the Bible. But there was no sheep in the Bible at this time. These were lions. And they were from Moses, which after receiving the word went into Meroe, which basically was no Meroe. He created Meroe, oxen, Napata, puts King Awawa, or in the Bible, Josephus, on the throne there. He had built Amarna. His daddy built Memphis. After all of this was done, a lot of the priests and them had bad blood when they come in smashing my temple, my tomb, our religious artifacts. Well, he was doing the same thing that Dohed did, who brought the same information from Americas into Egypt in the first place. And once all this information was brought into Egypt, it was brought the way it was supposed to be taught. A lot of this stuff got converted and diverted by the priests, and they started changing the meaning and the text of the words, which changed the whole religious base, caused, astrological base, all the scientific base. So then you started talking about science, you starting to get hung and killed and what have you. That was at a later date. But at this time, after Moses go and establish those organizations, those cities, there was no Abyssinians in those areas at that point. It came from Yemen, 1000 BC, which would put that almost 350 years after the fact. So again, that's a fraud. Okay, then he goes back up to Egypt, where pretty much everybody got upset, rallied against him, and instead of fighting at this point, Moses gathered all his people up. It was no slaves. He was the Pharaoh. All these other people, he gathered them up, which is his people, the blood, the royal bloodlines, and he exited Egypt. And contrary to popular belief, we go up through Spain and then up through Scotland and Ireland area. They trying to keep us out of Europe, because at this point, you keep us out of Europe, then you can keep us away from our castles and all the great things that we built in Europe. Okay? And all the saints and all the other stuff that you're now claiming. But there was no seed of Esau that was a prophet. Not one ever, except Job. He was the only one from the seed of Esau supposed to be. And I'm sure he was from the seed of Esau. But that's the only one supposed to be. Now, what we need to talk about is that these same organizations that put all these organizations in place to play games on people, steal people's legacies and what have you, they're also planners. Just like they just stole with the properties, that whole thing is a page right out of J.P. Morgan's and 24-hour margin call on the notes. In which he put a margin call on the notes, put an ad in the newspaper. Everybody at that time scrambled to the bank because they thought their assets were going to be seized by the bank. Pull the money out the bank, which crashes the bank, which leads to the Depression. Fast forward to 2008. Same J.P. Morgan knuckleheads. They started credit default swaps. But before that, let's talk about the fact when you sign your name, you actually pay for the property. They don't have delegation authority to act as the executive of your estate. But you don't know no better. So they take executive of your estate, pretty much now they're telling you what you can and what you cannot do with your own property. And then they take it and they extract money in it for 30 years from you. Then, but this particular time, they started selling notes overseas when they got the world government together. So now you got people buying and selling notes that don't exist, getting insurance on it, getting money from it, paying for stuff that they never owned, getting bailouts from banks and governments, and they coming back and taking your property on foreclosure too. So this is the most intricate frauds that has ever taken place in American history. And we got people that will not touch it, organizations, because they're all together. I mean, the United States government was formed in Britain 1871. So pretty much everybody in here is a slave. But Britain ain't never beat us once. I think we got number 3 coming up from you, Miss.
You have a hole on line 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. That's a hole on line 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.